What will Everton's lineup look like against Sunderland in the third round of the FA Cup? Listen, the game against Wolves has really damaged what options we have heading into this game, but I think it's important, and I don't usually do these types of videos where we look ahead to games, more so reflection-edit content, but I feel like with this being such an important game in terms of being able to really define our season, if we do go on a cup run, I feel like it's really important for us to look at what options we may have and how that could look from a tactical perspective. This is the lineup that started against Wolves in midweek, and honestly, I thought the three-man midfield worked quite well in how they were able to move into wide areas, Irakbunim in this zone and Armstrong in this zone, forming these little triangles with the fullbacks and the wingers. I thought that was very nicely balanced, and it had Wolves pinned into their own 6-yard box at times, with their defenders being ultra deep, and I feel like chances can come from that, and you do get the best out of Jack Grealish in that setup. But we don't have Jack Grealish for this game, and nor do we have Michael Keane, who is also suspended for 3 matches if it sticks, which is a whole other topic to discuss, because we've actually got quite a few centre-backs, but when they drop like flies like this, it does become a question of, well, who plays right-back? That's the big question heading into the defence, and that's where we're going to start. We're going to look at how the defence could look against Sunderland in the third round. In goal, it's a toss-up. It could be Mark Travers, because Moyes has been playing him in cup competitions. He played against Mansfield. He was okay, but when you have Jordan Pickford fit and available, you play Jordan Pickford as your starting goalkeeper, because he can often be a match winner despite being a goalkeeper. Then at left back, it could be a toss-up between Mykolenko or Adam Asnu. I feel like if we weren't playing Sunderland, who are a Premier League side and are actually doing quite well, better than us, I think they're 10th in the league after a really good start to their season. They dropped off against Brentford. Brentford did beat them 3-0, but the scoreline wasn't really reflectionary on how that game went. Sunderland had a few chances. They missed a penalty. They did create enough chances to maybe get a draw, but Brentford were just a bit more clinical than them in that game. But we shouldn't take that for granted, because this Sunderland team can do damage. I feel like if we were playing a lower league opposition, Adam Asnu could get into this team, and it could be a good platform for him to go and kick on and take that left back spot away from Mykolenko. But I just don't think, with all these injuries and all of this rotation that we're going to have to do in defence, I don't think Moyes will change another aspect of it and drop Mykolenko. So for that reason, I feel Mykolenko will be the left back. I feel like people will have their opinions on that. Let me know in the comments if you want Mykolenko or Asnu. Personally, I do feel like Asnu needs to be given a chance, because Mykolenko has been given the chance after chance after chance, and he's okay, but he's not undroppable. Not undroppable, to say the least. And then the question is next, well, who replaces Michael Keane at centre-half? Because Everton, obviously, having played Michael Keane and James Tarkowski almost exclusively throughout this season, barring some appearances here and there for Jake O'Brien at centre-back. And honestly, I feel like Jake O'Brien has really shone at centre-back when given the chance. He's almost a victim of his own versatility in a way, because he can play right-back. He's not amazingly comfortable there, but he can play it to a decent standard. He's never going to be a right back that bombs up the pitch and gets you goals or crosses, assists and creates chances, but he can do a job there, specifically from a defensive perspective, defending in his own third. He can do a good job there. But I do feel like this isn't the worst thing in the world with O'Brien coming in at centre-back, because he's shown that he is way more comfortable there. You can rely on him. His anticipation is really good. He often stops goals. He often gets goal line clearances when he's playing in the middle. So I feel like that's not the end of the world. Michael Keane has been okay. He's been okay at times this season, but that red card against Wolves has massively let us down. Say what you will, it was 50-50 though, but he's not going to be available unless it gets appealed and rescinded, and I just don't think it will. And partnering him, it just has to be James Tarkowski, because listen, we don't have that much option but to play James Tarkowski. Usually he's such an 8 out of 10 consistent performer for Everton as that centre-back that leads the team. But against Wolves, just before the first half finished, he gifted them a great chance. And if Wolves, or if that was another team that were a bit better than Wolves, or maybe a team that had a bit more confidence, we would have been punished. Those mistakes against Sunderland, especially, who've got clinical forwards, they can't happen. They absolutely can't happen. We're just going to have to hope that he's got it out of his system and that he's got that leadership in him to once again lead what is going to be a very makeshift back four and a pretty inexperienced back four that is going to look disorganized at times. I will say that before a ball's kicked. This is going to look disorganized when we're out of possession. With Jake O'Brien now in centre-back, it does leave room for a right-back. Obviously, we've played O'Brien there a few times this season, more than anyone else. We've also played James Garner there, who's actually looked very, very good in that position, and he's reliable. He can cross the ball. He's got a great ability to pass the ball forward, even when he's in those wide zones. But I feel like with the midfield absentees, we can't really replace Garner in the middle. That means possibly a start for Nathan Patterson. And when he signed, I felt like he was going to be that next Coleman, that attacking right back who's also quite adept physically and defensively. But he's struggled with injuries, which is not his fault. And he doesn't really seem to be able to break into that team and then get to the ceiling that we felt like he had when he signed from Rangers. Hopefully, this game against Sunderland can be the one that allows him to step up. And we're going to look at how this team sets up tactically after we've gone through the lineup. But I feel like he could play a big role. And I'm going to talk about that in just a second. But firstly, let's talk about the midfield, because that midfield against Wolves, I actually quite liked it. It was new. It wasn't a 4-2-3-1 with two defensive midfielders and an attacking midfielder just ahead of him. It was a three-man midfield that took up different zones of the pitch. Central zone was taken care of by James Garner, almost playing as that single pivot at times, demanding the ball from the centre-backs and then looking to play it forwards. And playing next to him, we had Harrison Armstrong, who I thought showed a lot of glimpses of positivity in the first half, especially against Wolves, getting on the ball and turning and then carrying it up the pitch. Receiving the ball on the back foot and being positive and getting his head up is a clear talent for Harrison Armstrong. It's a clear strong point of his game. I feel like as well, when he's not got the ball just yet, you notice it more than any other Everton player. Harrison Armstrong is always scanning over both shoulders, and that's what makes him receive the ball so cleanly. And rarely, despite turning in central and tight areas, he doesn't really lose it, and if he does, he often wins a free kick in the process. Next, we have someone who actually really impressed me in that first half against Wolves as well, Timmy Iroegbunam. There's been a lot of criticism over Timmy Iroegbunam at Everton, not really knowing what his best position is. Is he a defensive midfielder? Is he a more advanced midfielder playing higher up the pitch? Or is he a box-to-box? Playing next to James Garner, who is happy receiving the ball in these deep areas, is something that really unlocks Timmy Iroegbunam, I feel, especially in this role as the left-sided central midfielder, because he is allowed, like Harrison Armstrong on the other side, to make these movements in this channel of the pitch. And you know what? His ability to receive the ball, use his size to ride challenges, those are the areas of the pitch that he should be doing it in, because it's low risk in wide areas high up the pitch. If you lose it, the ball is naturally going to come back at you in the wide areas, which is not as dangerous, obviously, as the central areas. And I think Tim Iroegbunam, his profile especially, is made for that type of role. Speaking of role, and this wasn't an intended pun, but we obviously do have Merlin Role available, who could possibly come into that role ahead of Harrison Armstrong. I don't think that's the right move, because Harrison Armstrong, in the little minutes he's played, has looked a lot better than Merlin Role. Merlin Role still getting up to the physicality of the Premier League and is obviously still building his fitness, but Merlin Role is very adept in these areas of the pitch. I did a whole video speaking about why Everton actually bought him, because we've not seen the reason we bought him just yet, but I did a whole video on that. Go check that out if you want to. I'll put a link at the end of this video. But Merlin Role, I don't think his time is just yet. Not just yet. I think that midfield three, I don't think Moyes will want to change it too much, given that we're already trying to fill in gaps elsewhere. And then it comes to the wingers. And listen, I'm going to look at what Moyes may do and what I think Moyes will do. And then I'm going to talk about what I would do. I think David Moyes is going to stick with his senior pros in this one. He's going to put McNeil on the left, and he'll probably put Tyler Dibbling on the right. I know Dibbling isn't a senior pro, but he is a more senior player than an academy player, for example. Dibbling has that first season in the Premier League at Southampton under his belt, and he's got a high ceiling that I think he will grow into eventually, but in this current climate of Everton, it's so difficult to achieve that. And then you've got Dwight McNeil. Dwight McNeil was pretty absent against Wolves. He played up to 90 minutes, and I didn't really notice him. Dwight McNeil is a player that he has been good. He was very good under Sean Dyche. Obviously, remember, under Sean Dyche, he either played on the left or in central areas. And in the central areas, I did think he was quite good, especially shooting outside the box, having that end product in the central zone. He offered a lot a couple of years ago. But since then he's not really been in the team. I kind of get it because we've got so many wingers when everybody's fit that Dwight McNeil obviously will get pushed down the pecking order. But when you've got nobody fit or available, McNeil will be the one David Moyes starts, in my opinion. But what I would do, I would perhaps take a gamble because McNeil wasn't good enough against Wolves to command a spot in the starting 11. I know he played on the right and he's a bit predictable there because he's so left-footed, but I still think that a gamble could work in these forward positions because you can always make changes in the forward positions without upsetting the tempo and the rhythm of the team that much. If it was me at this left wing position, I would perhaps take a gamble. I don't think McNeil is undroppable, and you can drop him because he's not really earned that spot. He might get the spot out of necessity, but I don't think it's the worst thing in the world if he doesn't start, or maybe if he does start, that he gets taken off after about 60 minutes, because I think this player who I'm going to put forward has been exceptional for the under-21s, and that should be rewarded. Brayden Graham, we bought him from Linfield in Northern Ireland for decent money, and there's a reason, because his talent is scoring goals. This is a team without many goals in it. If you take away Barry, who's got 2 goals this season, it's nothing. James Garner's got a few, and otherwise, Michael Keane, even a goal scorer for Everton, weirdly, won't be there. So Brayden Graham, with his ability to find chances, especially find space in this area of the box, could pop up in an unlikely moment and get a goal. I feel like promoting players from the 21s is difficult when you're in a bad moment like we are right now, especially after drawing to the team at the foot of the Premier League. And I feel like that may be too much too soon and maybe a bit of too much of a deep end for Brayden Graham. But I feel like that's not impossible to imagine that Brayden Graham does get a start. Another option could be that Dibbling starts on the right and Merlin Roll is used as sort of an auxiliary winger, and out of possession just tucks in that little bit just to shore up that left-hand side. But that's so defensive, boring and negative. But in cup competitions, sometimes you do have to do that and just try to keep the game as tight as possible and try to nick a goal from a set piece or a free kick or maybe win a lucky penalty. And I don't think we will win a penalty because I don't think we'll get near their box, but we'll talk about that as well in a second. And then the fourth option, we've got 4 options for one position despite not having any players. But listen, they're not great options. That's the problem. That's the point of the video. The fourth option is maybe we put Asnu in there as that left winger. Listen, Asnu is better going forward than he is defending. When you look at his clips from Bayern Munich, from Real Valladolid, and even some of his academy clips from Barcelona, all of them are attacking focused clips. He's really good getting onto the ball in this area and crossing the ball with his left foot. But 1v1, he's actually quite good. He's got a bag full of tricks and he isn't afraid to use it. And for a young player, I feel like the confidence and ability to skin someone 1v1 can be that little ignition in the forward line that maybe gets us a goal. But if we stick to what Moyes will do, it could be McNeil. And I feel like that's the most likely option. Obviously, when it comes to the striker now, we've got 2 options. We've got Tierno Barry and then we've got Beto. Now, which one will Moyes go for? I feel like Barry hasn't not done anything to lose his starting spot. But in a game like this, where we're often going to be very, very deep, probably about here, with the wingers tucking in to make this 5 flat midfield, I feel like Beto, with his incessant running, be that clever running or just running for the sake of it, he could be used just to make these runs and try to bully the Sunderland centre-backs as much as possible. But I do feel like Barry is the one that will start because he can bring others into play. And if you get Tim Mirik-Boonham and Harrison Armstrong close to him, it could be an opportunity for Barry to win those aerial duels and then for Armstrong, for example, to win that second ball and then look to play Dibbling in by passing it forward to him, with Harrison Armstrong always having that picture in his head of what's going on around him. But tactically, this is what I expect to see from Everton in possession. I expect McNeil as a left footer who his main skill is crossing the ball to stay quite wide. Tim Mirik-Boonham to take up these spaces. Harrison Armstrong to take up the parallel space on the other side. Garner to be up and down laterally in this zone. back four to step up quite high. Nathan Patterson, I feel like, could have some moments from an attacking perspective in this setup, with Tyler Dibling being that left-footed winger who wants to move inside and affect the pitch in this type of area. I feel like Patterson could be allowed to move forward and create this triangle with Harrison Armstrong and Dibling and himself. And I feel like that may be an area of joy for Everton, and we could see that Everton maybe look to funnel the play into these three to look for combinations and manipulate the Sunderland back four and win those duels in high up the pitch zones. And then obviously Barry will look to target this back post zone, Dibling perhaps looking to cross the ball into him from these wide areas. But honestly, I feel like this is a very makeshift team. I feel like this isn't a team that you go into the game feeling confident, and if you win, it's great, and we all come back to it after the game thinking, what did we have to worry about? But honestly, I feel like it could be a rough watch. Sunderland, if they go a goal up, we may be in danger. They've got a few different players capable of scoring goals. They've got players like Enzo Lefebvre, who is extremely confident and does unlock defenses. And when you've got a makeshift defense, it just makes it easier for him. And then you've got Brian Broby, who's exceptional at finding the space in the box. I feel like it could be a long day for Everton, and it's a shame because this is quite an important game. It's the only real chance we have of having a successful season, having a good cup run, putting together a cup run that maybe feeds the team's confidence. And listen, this is quite a young team. Harrison Armstrong, for example, born in 2007. His first phone was an iPhone touchscreen. That's ridiculous. But yeah, this is a young team and an inexperienced team and a team that's slapped together almost. So I'm not confident, but I think this is what the lineup will look like, and this is probably going to be our best chance of getting something from the game. If you enjoyed that and you want to see an instant reaction after every game, go to my TikTok. The link is in the description. Instagram as well will be posted on there. And if you're new, subscribe, because I'm going to be making a reaction, whether it's good, whether it's bad, to this Sunderland game. So come back straight after the final whistle for that.